House to their places and the part that they will play in this Parliament. I hope they will get the support and comfort that they need wherever they sit. I want to make special mention to those making maiden speeches. We've had 3 of them in this debate, and in the best traditions across the House, they've been thoughtful and powerful. I actually always find maiden speeches a relief, because the House goes quiet and actually listens just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to what the member's actually saying. And it's quite refreshing, because we don't do that often enough. And so I think both the speeches themselves and the way in which this House has listened to them have been a good example of the tradition that we need to carry on with. There have been other very good contributions across the House, and the tone has been markedly different in the main from the tone of previous debates, and let us keep it that way. The Right Honourable Member for Fareham spoke. She's not in her place. I used to face her across the dispatch box. I have to say I can't pretend I agree with very much of what she says. But she did reference that it was her first speech since she had become a mum. And therefore I'm sure I speak for the whole House in congratulating her and all those new parents since Parliament was dissolved. We've had a general election. There is a clear winner with a clear majority. So I say this to members opposite. With that majority, be careful. Be careful. Doing things because the government has a majority doesn't mean those things are right. New Clause 37 is an example of that. This is about unaccompanied child refugees. This was the incredible campaign that Lord Dubs, Alf Dubs, ran to protect child refugees post-Brexit. And that campaign's been running for several years, that campaign for unaccompanied child refugees. And I know that members across the House have supported that campaign. Members from these benches and those benches have spoken powerfully about the case for unaccompanied child refugees. The commitment that was in the bill has been taken out. That is a moral disgrace, majority or no majority. And so I ask for those that will go into the lobby tonight to vote for this bill, and I know they will, and I understand that, but many of them will feel strongly about unaccompanied child refugees, and I ask them just to reflect for a moment on that. I turn to my own benches. We may have lost the general election, but we've not lost our values and our beliefs. Yeah. And we must fight for them day in, day out in this Parliament, and we will. So let me address the central issue. As a result of the general election, as a result of the majority the government's got and the mandate the government's got, we're leaving the EU. We will have left the EU within the next 6 months. Whatever side we were on, or no side at all, the Leave Remain argument goes with it. That doesn't mean that the deal negotiated by the Prime Minister is a good deal. It isn't. It was a bad deal in October when it was signed. It was a bad deal when it was first debated in this House in October. It was a bad deal last Thursday, and it's a bad deal today. In fact, it's worse today. It's worse today. Clause 30 in the previous bill gave Parliament a role in what happens next. There's a crucial decision to be taken in 6 months' time as to whether or not there should be an extension of any transition. Under the old bill, that was a decision that we collectively in Parliament would take according to the evidence and circumstances as they are in 6 months. A chance for Parliament to assess where the negotiations have got to and come to a decision on whether a deal would be negotiated within the period and take whatever measures are necessary to prevent no deal. That's been swept away. That's been taken out of the bill. All the promises that were made from that dispatch box about a new approach, that Parliament would be involved. We were told only a few weeks ago the Prime Minister had learned the lessons, and that one of the lessons was that to plough on without taking Parliament with you was a mistake, and there'll be a new approach because Parliament would be involved. And at the first opportunity, it's taken out. The new Clause 33 exacerbates that. This prevents the extension of any transition period. That is reckless and it's ridiculous, because the government has now chosen to give itself just 11 months to negotiate an entire trade deal and security deal. That's an unbelievably short period, and it can only lead to two outcomes: a bare-bones trade deal or no deal. I hear the chuntry. But if in November the negotiations have been going well, and let's hope they do, but they're not complete, and they need more time, and 2 months, 3 months would be enough. This now says we leave without a deal. So this doesn't provide for the situation where the negotiations have broken down. It also demands no deal where they're continuing. One of the other changes is Clause 34 and Schedule 4, the employment rights and protections. That's now gone, and it's said, oh well, we'll put that in an employment bill. Well, let's just trace the history of that to test that proposition. There's a bill coming. Workplace rights were originally in the legally binding part of the deal agreed by the previous Prime Minister, the internationally legally binding part. They were stripped out by this Prime Minister. They were put into the first draft of the bill before the general election, albeit in weak form. And on the 22nd October, in response to a question from my honourable friend from Batley and Spen, the Prime Minister said, people will need reassurance, there can be no regression. They've now been stripped out. The direction of travel is very clear, and nobody should be taken in by assurances about any forthcoming bill. And frankly, when the Prime Minister this morning referenced, I think, the Factories Act, that didn't give us any. It's worth dusting off the Factories Act if that is the level of ambition for future workplace rights. If that is the height, if that's the shining example of what we're heading for, it gives 1841. So this started life as a bad bill. It's now even worse. The changes the government have made weaken protections for workplace rights, sideline Parliament, and weaken protections for child refugees. It tells you everything you need to know about the Prime Minister and this government, about their priorities and their values. They're not Labour values. This is not a deal we can support, and we'll be voting against it tonight. Thank you.